Way you look at it, it had to hurt, didn't it? Seen those terrible headlines in print, particularly for both Harry and Meghan. You know the ones, talentless, grifters, did nothing for millions of pounds. And then, of course, this was on top of all the negative stories about the lack of interest 1 hour a week for their charity work. You see, this is part of the problem. When you're managed by people, particularly people that you're paying thousands of pounds for yourself, you would have thought that Harry and Meghan would have had a better control of the media. I mean, after all, this wasn't the tabloid media like the Globe or the National Enquirer making these headlines about thin air. These were serious, remarks verbatim from, of course, people in the know out at Spotify. And when they said, they were talentless and they were grifters, well, that's what the press printed. You would have thought that with that particular handle in mind, both Meghan and Harry may have listened to the people that could have changed their fortunes in their short tenure while being podcasters. But according to a very good source, the Duchess refused this Duchess, as ever, allegedly. And as ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. How are you? Nice to see you today. You all right? Nice to have your company. Yes, by the way, if you're going to bed, do sleep well. And if you're getting up, what a sight to start with me, eh? Not a good sight, is it? Oh, yeah, they're coming for me already. About you, but I've noticed that now with emergency services, you just put it on for a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds, should I say, and then put it off. It's so different when I was younger. You either knew it was coming or you didn't. Never really understand these new formats. Is it like that in your part of the world? Don't get me going, Yes, absolutely. Back as ever to your breaking roll story of the day. See, this story really I found baffling, to say the least. This is simply because when you consider Meghan really did have everything at her door. The opportunity as a podcaster, one of the biggest audible companies in the world, a production team of 25 staff, taking her time. It took them over a year just to, get out a trailer, if you remember, a 35-minute trailer. And the bigger problem that Spotify had was truly this, talking directly to some of the executives who've now been fired. They suggested a list of people that they felt would have made good guests. I mean, after all, they knew what they wanted, and more importantly, they were getting, a big considerable amount of money over to Harry and Meghan to make sure that they felt they were going to get the relevant guests, basically who were willing to pay. But Meghan and Harry assured Spotify that they had all the guests that they needed. After all, look at who they were and look at who they knew. You could, of course, believed that they knew what they were doing. As time marched on, Spotify, according to that good source, marched in with their own ideas. Now, what was interesting here is that they suggested that Meghan sit down with another Duchess at that time. No, we're not talking about the Duchess of Cambridge. We're talking about Duchess Sarah, the Duchess of York. Now, when you think about it, this would have made very good, perfect sense. There's Sarah, very well known in the American market, also something of a comeback trail with her historical novels, which have done well, very amiable, knows the score, wouldn't have said anything out of line, and this may have been a very clever bridge to build back with each side. You get the picture. But what's interesting here is, according to that well-placed source at Spotify, who've now been fired, and there's so many that are really willing to break their NDAs, that's their non-disclosure agreements, because they feel that they were, lambs to the slaughter. After all, they've lost their jobs while the Duke and Duchess keep the money. It's not a really good find, is it? Now, according to them, they said that no way was one of them going to back down. They didn't want to do it. I find this interesting because, as I say, knowing Sarah myself, she's a very easygoing person. And she would have thought this would have worked quite well for her, and no doubt would have said tentatively yes, seeking perhaps permission from, at that point, Her Majesty the Queen, or indeed perhaps the King. But what was interesting also is this could have been a very good bridging gap between the two families to say, look, we can get on, and here's proof in point. It could have also worked out incredibly well professionally for Meghan Markle. Let's not forget, her podcast is now being cancelled, while Sarah's Tea with Sarah is doing incredibly well, building every single episode. So once again, whoever does advise Meghan and Harry at great cost, seemingly it's the wrong advice, very costly, but more importantly, the blame, the idea, the future has to lie with them. Time and time again, they seemingly make all the wrong decisions, but as ever, it's never quite her fault. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.